Dear my student, how are you? I think all you are healthy. Today I want to discuss very important topics, meningitis in childhood. It is very important because if you not diagnosed as early as possible, patient may die. Now some terminology should be known before discussion of the meningitis. What do you mean by meningitis? Meningitis means inflammation of the meninges. Meninges means pia and arachnoid matter of the both brain and spinal cord and intervening CSF fluid. That is inflammation of pia matter and arachnoid matter, and intervening there is a fluid which is called CSF fluid. So three things should be involved: pia matter, arachnoid matter and CSF fluid. What do you mean by leptomeningitis? Leptomeningitis means inflammation of the pia matter and arachnoid matter. You know there is three layer of the brain: dura mater, pia mater and arachnoid matter. So leptomeningitis means inflammation of the pia and arachnoid matter, and pachymeningitis inflammation of the dura mater. What do you mean by encephalitis? Encephalin means brain. So inflammation of the brain parenchyma with dysfunction of the brain. It is diffuse lesion, usually caused by the virus infection. So it is inflammation of the brain parenchyma. Meningoencephalitis. Meningo means meninges, encephalitis means brain. So here both meninges and brain parenchymal involvement occurs. Encephalomyelitis. Encephal means only brain inflammation of brain and spinal cord. Myelitis means myelitis means spinal cord involvement. So brain and spinal cord involvement, it causes the encephalomyelitis. And encephalopathy, it is characterized as cerebral dysfunction without inflammation of the brain parenchyma due to toxin, poisons and abnormal metabolites. That is, there is no inflammation of the brain parenchyma, only dysfunction of the cerebral function. Example of local brain infection, this is brain abscess. Now meningitis, already I told that inflammation of the leptomeninges, that is pia mater and arachnoid matter overlying the brain and spinal cord and the intervening CSF fluid. So you know the brain covering, that is meninges, not only cover the brain, it also covered the spinal cord. So inflammation of the pia mater and arachnoid matter overlying the brain and spinal cord and intervening CSF fluid is called the meningitis. Now classification of meningitis. Broadly there is two group: acute pyogenic meningitis, aseptic meningitis. Acute pyogenic means there is fast formation, aseptic meningitis means there is no fast formation. Among the aseptic meningitis, tuberculous meningitis, viral meningitis, fungal meningitis, protozoal meningitis and chemical meningitis. Among them, tuberculous meningitis and viral meningitis is common, so I will discuss here. According to duration, there are another two groups: acute meningitis and chronic meningitis. Acute meningitis means duration is 4 weeks or less, such as bacteria, viral. But in chronic meningitis, duration is more than 4 weeks. Example, such as partially treated meningitis, tuberculous meningitis or TBM, fungal meningitis. Now I want to discuss about the acute pyogenic meningitis. Etiological agents depends on age, immune status and epidemiological status of the pathogens. So when you think about the organism, you think the age of the patients and geographical location and also the immune status. Organism 0 to 1 month of life, usually it is neonatal in meningitis. It will reflect the maternal flora or environment of the patients. Most important is GBS or group B Streptococcus 60 to 75%. Second organism gram negative bacilli, mainly E. coli. Third one is Listeria monocytogenes. Usually 3 organism produces neonatal meningitis, but it does not produces commonly in neonatal sepsis except E. coli. In other organism producing in neonatal meningitis is influenzae, Proteus pseudomonas. And preschool children, Ace influenza type B, Streptococcus pneumoniae, Neisseria meningitis, 2 months to 5 years to 6 years old children. In these children, there are 3 organisms very important to producing acute pyogenic meningitis: Ace influenza type B, Streptococci pneumoniae, that is pneumococci, Neisseria meningitis, that is meningococci. Other older children and adult, Neisseria meningitis, streptococcal pneumonia. This is older children and adult. Older children and adult, Neisseria meningitis, and that is meningococci and streptococci. So, look at this here. Meningococci is the first and streptococci pneumonia is the second. But in school going children, in preschool going children, there is Ace influenza type B is the first, second is pneumococci, third one is meningococci. Less common organism usually affect at any age where there is anatomic defect, immune deficit or neurosurgical procedure or trauma. This is uncommon organism. The Pseudomonas, Staphylococcus aureus, coagulase negative Staphylococci, Salmonella, Listeria monocytogenes, anaerobes. Usually this organism does not producing meningitis, but if there is anatomical defect or skull fracture or neurosurgical procedure or trauma, in this condition this organism may produce acute pyogenic bacterial meningitis. Now, mode of transmission, that is route of entry. Heterogeneous dissemination, most common, spread of microorganism from the distant site of infection. So, most important is heterogeneous dissemination. Another one is direct spread from contagious focus or infection. It is rare, that is from medial or inner ear fistula, sinusitis, mastocytitis, orbital cellulitis, cranial or midline facial defect, basal skull fracture, penetrating cranial trauma, cranial or vertebral osteomyelitis, CSF shunt infection, lumbosacral dermal sinus, meningomyocele. In this condition, usually organism transmitted from this lesion to the brain through the direct spread, not hematogenous. So, when you take the history to diagnose the meningitis, you should take the history from this risk factor. Now, pathology. You know that there is inflammation of the meninges, so meninges becomes inflamed, swollen and edematous. And if it involves the ventricles, that is ventriculitis, cerebral infarction, subarachnoid hemorrhage, inflammation of the spinal nerves and roots, inflammation of the cranial nerves gives rise to cranial neuropathy such as optic nerve, oculomotor nerve, facial nerve, auditory nerve and abducens nerve. This abducens nerve is long intracranial course. Any condition when there is rise of intracranial pressure, this abducens nerve paralysis may occur. Raise intracranial pressure, subdural effusion, hydrocephalus, all things happens in acute pyogenic meningitis. Now, pathogenesis of acute pyogenic meningitis. Bacterial colonization of the nasopharynx, enter the bloodstream producing bacteremia, and bacterial organism then breach the blood-brain barrier and enter the CNS through the choroid plexus of the lateral ventricles and meninges and circulate to the extracerebral CSF and subarachnoid space and rapidly multiply, cause infection and marked inflammatory response, which is characterized by the neutrophilic infiltration, increased vascular permeability, alteration of the blood-brain barrier, and vascular thrombosis. So, first bacterial colonization occurs in nasopharynx, then they enter the bloodstream where they produce bacteremia, and this bacteria then breach the blood-brain barrier, enter the CNS through the choroid plexus of lateral ventricles and meninges, and circulate to the through the CSF, and there is intense inflammation which is producing inevitably implantation, increased vascular permeability, alteration of the blood-brain barrier, vascular thrombosis. Now, following infections of the meninges and CSF, the following consequences occurs. The inflammation of spinal nerve and roots give rise to meningeal irritation and characterized by the neck rigidity. Kerning sign. What do you mean a kerning sign? Flexion of the hip 90 degree with subsequent pain with extension of the leg. That is, when you flexion the hip in 90 degree position, then you extend the leg, there is pain feels in the leg due to spasm of the hamstring muscle. Budzinski sign, involuntary flexion of the knees and hips after passive flexion of the neck while supine. When you flex the neck in supine position, there is involuntary flexion of the both knees and hips. This is called the Budzinski sign. These three signs is very important due to spinal nerve irritation, meningeal irritation producing inflammation of the spinal nerve and roots. This is the kerning sign. You flex the hip joint 90 degree and then extend the leg, patient producing pain in the hamstring muscle. This is the Budzinski sign. When you passively flex the neck, there is involuntary flexion of the both knee and hip. It is producing it is called the Budzinski sign. The cranial nerve neuropathy, mainly oculomotor and abducens nerve palsy occurs. When abducens nerve palsy occurs, it is non-localizing sign of raised intracranial pressure because it has a long intracranial course. So, any condition where the raised intracranial pressure arises, abducens nerve paralysis may occur. Other nerves involve optic nerve, facial nerve, and auditory nerve. Now, raised intracranial pressure. Why raised intracranial pressure occurs in the meningitis? Due to cytotoxic edema, vasogenic cerebral edema, and interstitial edema. Cytotoxic edema occurs due to the cell death producing hyperintensity of the brain, extracellular spaces, increased cell swelling, brain cell swelling, and lysis, cytotoxic edema. Vasogenic cerebral edema due to cytokine induced increased capillary vascular permeability. Interstitial edema due to increased hydrostatic pressure, and another important cause is SIAD, that is increased inappropriate ADH secretion, which increase the fluid retention and producing raised intracranial pressure. Now, sign symptom of raised intracranial pressure characterized by the cardinal signs and other sign symptom. Among the cardinal sign symptom, headache, it is bursting headache. Older children complain the bursting headache. Vomiting, it is vomiting effortless and projectile. Mind it, effortless and projectile. And hypertension with bradycardia and papilledema. And these four things are cardinal signs of raised intracranial pressure. Papilledema usually seen in the chronic cases such as brain abscess, subdural empyema, occlusion of the dural venous sinuses. In acute cases, usually papilledema not develop. Other signs of raised intracranial pressure, bulge spontaneously or diastasis of the sutures, that is widening of the sutures, oculomotor or abducens nerve palsy, apnea or hyperventilation, alteration of the mental status characterized by the restlessness, irritability, lethargy, obtundration, stupor, and coma. Signs of brain herniation and decorticate or decerebrate posturing. These are the other signs of raised intracranial pressure, but most important sign symptom is headache, vomiting which is effortless and projectile, hypertension is bradycardia and papilledema. Now, other pathology occurs, damage to the cerebral cortex. Why damage to the cerebral cortex occurs? Due to vascular occlusion, producing infarction, necrosis, lactic acidosis and cerebritis, which is bacterial invasion, toxic encephalopathy due to bacterial toxin, raised intracranial pressure, ventriculitis, subdural effusion. All these factors producing cerebral cortex damage. Now, manifestation of the cerebral cortex damage characterized by the impaired consciousness, seizure, cranial nerve deficit, motor and sensory deficits, and later psychomotor retardation. And hydrocephalus. Why hydrocephalus occurs in the meningitis? Due to the adhesive thickening of the arachnoid villi, because there is intense inflammation and inflammatory exudate in the CSF pathway and producing thickening of the arachnoid villi, fulminating hydrocephalus is more common. There is also the fibrosis and gleusis of the foramina of the ventricles, obstructive hydrocephalus may develop, which is characterized by the irritability, vomiting, tense, spontaneously flattened, rapidly enlarging head. So, these are the signs of hydrocephalus. Now, subdural effusion also develops 10 to 30% cases. Collection of fluid in the subdural spaces is called the subdural effusion. Usually, it is asymptomatic in 85 to 90% cases. Commonly occurs in the infant and more common in S. influenzae infection, which is manifested by the bulging fontanelle, sutural diastasis, enlarging head circumstances, and vomiting, convulsion, fever, abnormal cranial transmission test. And when you do the CT scan or MRI, it confirms the subdural effusion. Treatment: aspiration through the open fontanelle if raised intracranial pressure or depressed cortical consciousness level. So, subdural effusion is diagnosed by the clinically bulging fontanelle, sutural diastasis, enlarging head circumference, vomiting, convulsion, fever, and abnormal cranial transmission test, very important test. Now, elevated CSF protein. Why CSF protein increase in acute pyogenic meningitis? Due to increased vascular permeability of the blood-brain barrier, loss of albumin-rich fluid from the capillaries, and brains traversing the subdural spaces. Very important, usually asked in the Viva board. And why CSF glucose level reduced? Due to the impaired glucose transport by the inflamed cerebral tissue. So, impaired glucose transport. Number 2, increased utilization of glucose by the cerebral tissue. Utilization of the glucose by the bacterial for multiplication of CSF. So, there are 3 causes to reduce CSF glucose. Number 1, impaired glucose transport. Number 2, increased utilization by the cerebral tissue and the bacteria. Now, seizure. Why seizure occurs in the acute pyogenic meningitis? Seizure may be focal, may be generalized, occurs on presentation, or within 4 days of acute pyogenic meningitis due to cerebritis, cerebral infarction, electrical imbalance with cerebral or cerebellar herniation. So, these are the causes of the seizure, and another cause is the fever. SIARS, syndrome of inappropriate ADS secretion, usually occurs in the 30 to 50% cases. This is because there is inappropriately ADS secretion increase, that is level of the ADS secretion is increased. So, it producing water retention and hyponatremia. In that cases, there is cerebral edema exaggerated, which is characterized by the seizure, that is due to hyponatremia and cerebral edema, and when you do the electrolytes, there is hyponatremia, and if you do the serum osmolarity, it is reduced, and if you do the urinary osmolarity, it will increase. This ADS due to increased action of the ADS. Now, meningococcal septicemia with meningitis, meningococci not only producing meningitis, sometimes is producing septicemia. In that case, if you do the skin survey, we get the petechiae, purpura, erythematous macular rash, and shock, and purpura, and DIC. Complications. Acute complication: seizure, raised intracranial pressure, cranial nerve palsy, stroke, cerebral or cerebellar herniation, dural venous thrombosis, subdural effusion. SEER, DIC, anemia due to hemolysis, dural venous thrombosis, prolonged fever, usually fever if fever persists more than 10 days, hydrocephalus, subdural empyema, cerebral abscess, pericarditis, arthritis occurs in acute, it occurs in hospital admission patients. In late complication, patient develops hydrocephalus, subdural empyema, cerebral abscess, pericarditis arthritis. Pericarditis arthritis, cerebral abscess, subdural empyema, hydrocephalus also occurs in the early course, but it may occurs in the late complication. Remote complication: hearing loss, mainly sensorineural due to auditory nerve, intense inflammation of the auditory nerve, visual impairment, behavioral problems, mental retardation, epilepsy, cerebral palsy, central diabetes insipidus due to hypothalamic or pituitary hyperfunctions. So, these are the complications of the acute pyogenic meningitis. Now, diagnosis. One of the renowned pediatrician, we call the father of pediatrics, now he has died. He has died. Our teachers known as know the Professor Sadat Hossain. He, when he delivered lecture, he told us that it is easy to diagnose of meningitis, but easy to miss too. It needs no instruments to diagnose, need only one hand to see the bulge anteropontonally and same hand to see the neck stiffness. So, if you diagnose, if for diagnosis of the meningitis you do not do the investigations, only put one hand to see the anteropontonally and same hand to see the neck stiffness. If any one of these things presents, your diagnosis is meningitis until proved otherwise. And diagnosis of the acute pyogenic meningitis depends on history, physical examination, and investigations. From history, the age of onset at any age. Onset may be sudden onset, may be insidious onset. Sudden onset usually acute or pulmonary onset meningococcal septicemia, and insidious onset takes several days with fever accompanied with manifestation of upper respiratory infection or GI symptoms following non-specific signs of CNS infection. So, meningitis not only acute onset, it may be insidious onset. Presenting symptoms, non-specific symptoms usually due to systemic infection or bacteremia, characterized by the fever, headache, anorexia and vomiting, poor feeding, myalgia and arthalgia. And specific symptoms usually CNS related, triads of symptoms, fever, triad of symptoms very important of meningitis, fever, headache, meningisms, which is characterized by the headache, photophobia, neck pain, rigidity. So, if triad of symptom presents, you think patient suffering from meningitis until proved otherwise. Symptoms of raised intracranial pressure, headache, bursting headaches in older children, vomiting, reportless projectile 82% cases. There is alteration of the mental status, irritability, lethargy, stupor, obtundration and coma. Patient may develop also seizure. May present with complications such as shock, bleeding manifestation if there is meningococcal septicemia. History of risk factors. First history, you should take the first history, close contact with invasive disease and presence of infections such as facial cellulitis, paranasal sinuses, otitis media, mastocytitis, pneumonia, and CNS risk factors: skull fracture, penetrating skull trauma, CNS shunt infection, lumbosacral, normal sinuses, meningomyocele. You should take history for your diagnosis of the meningitis, not for diagnosis of meningitis, also a type of the organism, because many organisms involved in this related with these risk factors. Now you should take the vaccination history: hip vaccination, PCV, vaccine, meningococcal conjugate vaccine, meningococcal vaccination. If patient not taking this vaccine, they are vulnerable to develop acute pyogenic meningitis. Family history: there is history of meningitis in the family, so it is contagious. So you should take the history of meningitis in the family. Treatment history: use of antibiotics with dose and duration, because if this antibiotic, if you do not history the take of the antibiotic, so if during treatment the antibiotic, source of antibiotic, it should not be correct. On physical examination: general examination, appearance ill looking or toxic, and among the vitals: raised temperature, evidence of raised intracranial pressure, that is hypertension with bradycardia, and signs of meningitis: neck rigidity, 77% Karnik sign and Buzinski sign. And if you do the head examination, in case of infant is less than 2 years of age, if anterior frontal is not closed, in that case you get the bulge stance anterior frontally and social diastasis. And if you do the skin survey, you may get the petechiae purpura or erythematous macular rash if there is meningococcal septicemia. There may tachycerebri is another sign. If you elicit by stroking the skin with a blunt object, there is raised streak within 30 to 60 seconds. It is not very specific sign of meningitis. And if you do the pandoscopy, you may get the papilledema. On systemic examination, if you do the central nervous system examination, higher mental function may be impaired. You should do the consciousness level by the Glasgow Coma scale, which may be impaired. And if you do the cranial nerve examination, you may get the cranial nerve palsy. And investigation: again, investigation may divide in the routine investigation, specific investigation for diagnosis, investigation for complications. Routine investigation: complete blood count and CRP, there means leukocytosis, raised CRP, C-reactive protein, and ESR. And if you do the investigation for diagnosis, you should do the LP for CSF study, physical, biochemical, cytological, and bacteriological examination. Amount of CSF should be required for 1 ml. If you do the physical examination, pressure is raised 100 to 300 centimeter of water, normally 50 to 80, and color hazy, turbid or purulent, normally color is clear. Cell count 1000 to 60,000 per cubic millimeter, but there is neutrophilic phagocytosis. Neutrophilic means there is neutrophil and lymphocyte, but neutrophilic preponderance is 75 to 95%. Elevated protein 100 to 500 mg per dl, normal 20 to 45 mg%, and reduced glucose less than 40 mg per dl, sometimes even 0. If you do the gram staining and culture, you will get the presence of microorganism which confirm the diagnosis. If you do the gram staining and if you get the gram negative diplococci, your impression is it is meningococci. It is gram positive diplococci, it is pneumococci. If gram negative coccobacilli, it is S. influenzae. It is gram positive coccobacilli, it is Listeria monocytogenes. If gram positive cocci, you think it is GBS, that is present in the neonatal meningitis, group B streptococci. So it is asked in the Viva board. And for rapid diagnosis, you should do the PCR and lateral examination test of CSF, and also you do the estimation of lactate in the CSF. It is high in the viral infection, and CSF culture for fungus if indicated. And if you do the culture, blood culture 80 to 90% positive, gram staining and culture for the petechiae purpura if present contain microembolus, gram staining infectious sites such as otitis media if present, and Third investigation for complication is indicated, such as ultrasonography, CT scan used to detect the subdural effusion, hydrocephalus, brain abscess, X-ray skull for raised intestinal patient in older children, coagulation factors, fibrinogen, APTT if petechiae purpura or abnormal bleeding occurs. Now treatment outline: counseling, specific therapy, supportive therapy, treatment of complications, follow-up, prognosis and prevention. These are the treatment outline. So specific therapy, parenteral antibiotic therapy. Initially you should start the empiric and intravenous antibiotic therapy before getting culture and sensitivity. You should not delay for starting the antibiotic therapy, because if you delay the starting the antibiotic therapy, patient condition may be deteriorate, even die. So you should start the empirical antibiotic therapy before getting the culture and sensitivity report. The choice of drug is vancomycin and ceftriaxone. Change of antibiotic after culture and sensitivity. Duration of therapy, if unknown cases, at least 10 to 14 days. If meningococci, 5 to 7 days. If S. influenzae, 7 to 10 days. If pneumococci, 10 to 14 days. And gram-negative organism, 3 weeks or at least 2 weeks after CSF sterilization. So you should remember this duration is asked in the Viva board. Now you should give the steroid therapy. You should give it the baby age is more than 6 weeks, less than 6 weeks it is not used, especially if meningitis occurs due to S. influenzae infection. Dexamethasone given 0.15 mg per kg per dose 6 hourly, 4 divided doses for 2 days. Started 1 to 2 hours before first dose of antibiotic or concomitantly or soon after first dose of antibiotic. So if you give the steroid, it is dose is 0.15 mg per kg per dose 6 hourly for 2 days. Start 1 to 2 hours before first dose of antibiotic, or you may give soon after first dose of antibiotic. Supportive therapy, diet, NG tube feeding if patient is unconscious. Fluid, you should restrict the fluid, because patient may develop, if you not restrict the fluid, patient may develop CR, and treatment of unconscious patients if present. And treatment of complication if present, seizure, raised intracranial pressure, seizure by the IV or paraacral diazepam. And if patient develop raised intracranial pressure, you elevate the head of the bed to 30 degree, IV fusimide, IV mannitol, shifting the fluid from the CNS to the plasma. This mannitol producing shifting of the fluid from the CNS to the plasma, and sometimes you may add the diuretics. And you should treat the subdural effusion, shock if present, and if patient develops CR, in that case you restrict the fluid half to 2/3 of the maintenance. And follow up during treatment period, general assessment by vitals and neurology assessment such as head circumference, measurement, level of consciousness, pupillary reflexes, cranial nerve examination. And you should do some investigation during hospital admission, renal function test, serum electrolytes, urine output and specific gravity to exclude the seared. And sometimes you should do the repeat the LP if in case of gram-negative meningitis or beta-lactam resistant pneumococci. In that case you may do the repeat LP if patient not respond within 48 to 70 hours of antibiotic therapy. So if patient not improve within 48 to 72 hours of antibiotic therapy, in that case you may do the repeat LP. After discharge, you should follow up the patient for visual audiological assessment, because there is intense inflammation of the auditory nerve. So patient may develop deafness, sometimes patient may develop visual impairment. So you should follow up the patient for a visual audiological assessment and cranial nerve, other cranial nerve examination. Now prognosis. Prognosis depends on the age of the patient immunity and type of the organism. Overall mortality rate despite of proper antibiotic therapy beyond the neonatal period is less than 10%, higher in the pneumococcal meningitis. Severe neurodevelopmental sequelae occurs 10 to 20% cases, usually characterized by the hearing loss, sensory neural hearing loss, seizure, visual impairment, mental retardation, behavioral problems, speech difficulty. So, if you not treat the acute pyrotic meningitis as early as possible, mortality rate is high, and also survivor develop neurological sequelae. Poor prognostic sign, infant less than 6 months, seizure persists after 4 days of illness, which can be refractory to treatment. If patient initially present with coma or focal neurological signs, absence of CSF neutrophilic phagocytosis, and if bacterial count in CSF 10 to the power 6 CFU of bacteria per ml. So, these are the poor prognostic sign. Infant age, if age of the child is less than 6 months, if seizure persists after 4 days of illness, and which can be refractory or refractory treatment, if patients initially present with coma or focal neurological signs, if absence of CNS neutrophilic leukocytosis, and if bacterial count is more in the CSF fluid. Prevention by vaccination, S. influenzae, pneumococcal and meningococcal vaccination through the EPI schedule, and antibody prophylaxis needed before discharge of the patient for the patient by the rifampicin 20 mg per kg per dose every day for 4 days. So, antibody treatment does not kill the all colonization of the bacteria of the patient. So, rifampicin should be given during discharge 20 mg per kg per dose every day for 4 days. And for susceptible patient, the contact patient, the household contact or family member, in that case, if it is due to S. influenza, rifampicin given 20 mg per kg every day for 4 days, and for meningococcal infection 10 mg per kg per dose every 12 hourly for 2 days, but pneumococci no prophylaxis required, only prevention by the vaccines. Now, differential diagnosis: viral meningitis or viral encephalomyelitis, partially treated meningitis, tubercular meningitis, brain abscess, meningism, enteric encephalopathy. So, if we ask the DD of the acute pyogenic meningitis, you should do the tell the pyogenic meningitis, you should do the viral meningitis or encephalitis, partially treated bacterial meningitis, tuberculous meningitis, brain abscess, and meningism and enteric encephalopathy. So, how can we differentiate viral meningitis or viral encephalitis from the acute pyogenic meningitis? Viral meningitis is more acute, and there is history of viral upper respiratory infection and less ill patient. Fever is less marked, meningism is less marked, but disturbance of sensory is more marked, which is characterized by the mental confusion, irritability, loss of consciousness, diffuse local neurological sign. There is disabled and decorticated rigidity is more marked. If you do the CSF study, is normal except lymphocytic predominance. And how can you differentiate from the partially treated meningitis? If the diagnosis of acute bacterial meningitis is not suspected and the patient is treated by various antibiotics, it marks the features of acute meningitis. It is known as partially treated meningitis. It is diagnosed by the CSF study. If you do the CSF study, color is clear and sterile, but in case of acute pyogenic meningitis, it is turbid. Glucose protein is unchanged like as acute pyogenic meningitis. Cell is 5 to 10,000, usually polymer conical leukocyte, but if long treated, in that cases there is lymphocyte. If we do the Gram staining, in that case organism may be seen, and PCR detect the bacterial RNA may negative. So, only one is, that is the color is clear and sterile. Tuberculous meningitis, it is insidious onset. There may be history of exposure to tuberculosis. There is evidence of primary compression in the lungs. There are three distinct stages: prodromal stage, signs of meningitis, stage of coma, and features of meningeal irritation are less marked. If we do the CSF study, color is clear opalescent. There is co-wire formation on standing. Glucose level is reduced. Protein level is greatly increased more than acute pyogenic meningitis, and cells are lymphocytic predominance. And if we do the Janssen stain, there may be tubercular bacilli may be found. How can I differentiate by the brain abscess? Its onset is insidious, low grade fever, meninges mass is absent or less marked, localized neurological signs, history of congenital cyanotic heart disease, lung abscess, CSOM, mastocytitis, osteomyelitis. It is common in the common risk factor of the brain abscess. And if it is CSF study is not done, if done, it is normal unless rupture into the ventricles. How can you differentiate from meningism from the acute pyogenic meningitis? Occur in the apical pneumonia, no neurological sign, CSF normal, absence of meningeal irritation, and GI sign symptom is more marked, that is tympanic abdomen. It is usually occurs in the not in iterator type enteric encephalopathy. So meningism occur in the apical pneumonia, more neurological signs, CSF normal, and absence of meningeal irritation. And these findings are due to the enteric encephalopathy. The GI is more marked, tympanic abdomen, splenomegaly, coated tongue, and Widal test positive. If you do the CSF, it is normal. Already told. Now normal CSF, you will know it is older children, color is clear, pressure 50 to 80, total cell count less than 5, but 70% lymphocyte, protein 20 to 45, and if you do the glucose, it is less than 50 milligram per dl or 70% blood glucose, and gram stain no good. But in neonate pressure is equal to the older children, but in total cell count is 0 to 32, or in older children less than 5. In preterm 0 to 29, and neutrophil 57 to 61%, but in case of adult it is 75% is lymphocyte. Protein in older children 20 to 45, but in neonate it is 20 to 170. In case of preterm it is 65 to 150. In glucose, in case of neonate 34 to 119 milligram per dl in term, and 24 to 63 milligram per dl in preterm, and but in adult or older children it is more than 50 milligram per dl. In gram stain do both cases no growth. These are the CSF findings of barrier condition. It is written in the textbook. I know I do not discuss here. Now SAQ. A child 5 years presented with fever, convulsion. He has history of adhesive media. On examination, patient is toxic and neck rigidity. What is the possibility? So from key point, age of the child is 5 years, and patient present with fever, presentation fever, convulsion, and history of adhesive media is risk factor. On examination, toxic and neck rigidity. So what is possibility? Possibility is the acute pyogenic meningitis. Why acute pyogenic meningitis? Because fever, convulsion, and risk for adhesive media, and there is toxic and neck rigidity. Name 3DD. One is the viral meningitis, another one is the encephalitis, and third one you may tell about the acute pyogenic meningitis also. What information you should take to reach your diagnosis? How can you investigate the patient? Write down the outline of the treatment. Why introduce cerebral malaria? Because in case cerebral malaria, there is history of adhesive media, number one, and patient is neck disease usually absent. Now 10 years old boy admitted with the fever and convulsion, write 3DD. Number one 3DD is the cerebral malaria, encephalitis, and acute meningitis. So, cerebral malaria, encephalitis and acute meningitis. Write down most important history in favor of diagnosis. Write down specific investigation for diagnosis. Write down the outline of management. OSPE. A 5-year-old boy presented with fever with convulsion for 2 days. On examination, he is unconscious, skin rash on the back and lower limbs. What is the probable diagnosis? Write down 3 DD of above condition. How can you differentiate from each other by the specific investigation? Write down the specific treatment for this condition. Now, from above scenario, key points are: age is 5 years, sex is boy, presenting features are fever and convulsion duration 2 days, on examination unconscious, skin rash on the back and lower limbs. So, what is the probable diagnosis? My probable diagnosis is a case of acute meningococcal septicemia with meningitis. Why acute bacterial meningococcal septicemia? Because patient have fever, convulsion and moreover patient develops skin rash on the back and lower limbs. So, in that case my provisional diagnosis is acute meningococcal septicemia with meningitis. Why meningitis? Because patient develops convulsion. Write down 3 DD of above condition. One of the condition, if we do there is skin rash and on skin rash of the back and lower limb. So, the first of you things the consideration the also fever. So, in that case aplastic anemia with intracranial hemorrhage, leukemia with intracranial hemorrhage you should think. How can you differentiate from each other by specific investigations? Write down the specific treatment of this condition. So, my dear students, I elaborately discussed about the acute pyogenic meningitis. In next class, I will discuss about the viral meningitis, viral encephalitis and tuberculous meningitis. Thank you.